Hello and what? Oh, no, my throat caught there. Let me try that again. That was horrible.
Are you gonna give one of your? You gonna give one of your morbid? Hi, this is Dan. Little pre-podcast note. I've still got a cold. You
No,
may hear some coughing.
that was mostly. Did you hear that last week?
Yeah.
That was mostly to do the thing about the pebbles because I felt very stupid when I realised.
Oh yeah. I forgot about that bit.
Well, anyway, are we going to shove this at the front?
Yeah.
You can say cue the music and we'll go into it and do it proper.
Is it cue the music or roll the titles?
It's cue the music. You always change it to roll the
Okay.
titles. It's never been roll the titles, Chris. I don't know
Okay.
I don't know what happened.
Okay. Sorry. Okay. Here we go. Roll the titles.
Dickhead. Hello and welcome to Stephen University. This week, of course, we will be discussing Together Alone. This is a big one.
Is that because we're in different locations? So we're together, but we're both alone.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean,
I
think when the
that was
crew,
the name of the episode, wasn't it?
yeah.
Ah, shit. New year, same quality banter from Steven Universe.
Well, I was just about to say because I was like baffled because again, like, as I'm sure you as you noticed, Chris, that joke didn't make a lot of sense. So I was like trying to make it work in my head, and I was like, okay, I guess the angle I have to take here is pointing that out. And I was going to be like, well, I don't think the crew for Steven Universe were really thinking of our podcast when they named their episode. But
Which is a shame.
you got there before me.
Happy New Year, peeps.
For those who, I mean, you could be listening to this at any point. You could be listening to this in the year 2022 or something. But for us right now, it's January the 1st, 2019.
Whoop, whoop.
And this episode aired in the UK about 30 minutes into the new year. It was 12:30.
I did
It was very.
I did wonder, like at midnight, I was like, could I just stay up and watch it? But I opted not to because I didn't know where to do that, and I appreciate I should have just asked you. But you did stay up and watch it, didn't you?
Yeah, I watched. Me and Nadia both stayed up and watched it live, and then again when it went on Daily Motion, we watched it twice last night alone. And I've watched it a couple more times since then. So yeah, it's a particularly good episode, I would say. So someone pointed out that for the benefit of future listeners, Chris, we should continue doing the recaps. So
That's not a bad shout, actually.
and since I was so awful at it, you promised that it would be back to you once we got to new episodes. So I'm putting that on you. Now you have to do the recap, and I can sit here and be persnickety and be like, well, it wasn't as good as last week's recap, or a few too many ums and ahs in there, Chris. So you've got to be spot on after that, I think.
See, you made out at the time that your anger at that was just for comic effect, but you seem to have been bringing it up at every opportunity. So I think you're genuinely a bit annoyed.
Either that, or I'm just desperately clinging to some sort of running gag because all our other running gags died a long time ago. You tried to force Dave into last week because that didn't work.
I'm gutted about that. Gutted to not see him.
I know.
I'm still pretty sure Dave lives near my mum and dad. But anyway, so we start with the dream sequence, as suspected from the trailers. It was a dream sequence, which basically seemed to suggest that Stephen's essentially coughing up Rose's hair. And in what starts with, it's one of those weird ones where it could be a dream or it could be a flashback or a representation of one of Rose's memories of Homeworld, where we see her messing around with a pink pearl, and Yellow sort of keeping an eye on what they're up to. And then when we wake up, we're in kind of full party planning mode. Stephen is with all the crystal gems. They're there with him, staying with him, and the pebble creatures are sort of trying to make it feel more homely. But clearly Garnet is still unsettled by this. So then we go into talking about the party and what that maintains, and that's when we get the kind of splitting up, and we're told that it's a very formal affair. Stephen has to sit in Pink's chair and just kind of watch the party take place. Stephen attempts to make it a bit more jovial. He kind of tries to dig into the pearls a bit, Blue and Yellow's pearls, who have been sent by their relevant diamonds to try and help with the party planning. And we find out that Blue Pearl likes to draw, and Yellow Pearl clearly likes to be a bit of a model. So they kind of have a little bit of fun, but it's all overhanged by the formalities of the party. Then when we get into the actual ball, it's very formal. Connie's been allowed to stay with Stephen because she's classed as his pet. Pearl is able to stay with Stephen for obvious reasons. She's his Pearl. Garnet has been told that if she wants to go, by Blue tells her that if she wants to go, she has to separate. And also Amethyst needs to wear limb enhancers. So Garnet says she's not going to go. Amethyst does turn up in the limb enhancers and kind of jokes about how she doesn't know how Peridot did it for so long, but she's very Amethyst about it and decides to go off and party and try and mingle with the others. Stephen gets frustrated by the formalities and then even more frustrated when White doesn't turn up. So he's been getting a lot of, oh, you look wonderful, and that's beginning to kind of upset him. Then when White doesn't turn up, even though the other two diamonds have, it kind of frustrates him. And so Connie, in a very rebellious streak from Connie, is just like, well, let's dance. And Stephen's like, no, we can't. She's like, no, come on. And they go down and everyone gasps. And she's like, come on, let's dance. And then they begin to dance. And that's the moment where you go, oh, shit. It's about to go down. To quote Kevin Hart's early stand-up. And what you have this pit in your stomach is going to happens, and they fuse into Stevonnie. Everyone is shocked and appalled.
Oh, that was a good Freudian slip, though. Everyone was shocked and appalled.
Appalled. All the pearls. Pearl, 2 pearl, 3 pearl are all shocked. And White Diamond's pearl is particularly frowny, like literally goes from a smile to a frown. And that's when we find out that Ruby and Sapphire have separated and have gone, because they fuse together to form Garnet. And then Pearl decides to grab Amethyst, and they fuse together to form Opal, non-speaking, to fight as well. And then that's when we get what appears to be 2 members of Yellow's courts say that they knew they couldn't be the only ones, and then they fuse, and it turns out they're kind of a secret fusion. And the crystal gems look confused at that, but it's awesome. But Yellow, the wrath of Yellow is apparent, and in just what, in my opinion, is like, we've had great moments, end episodes, where you go, what does that mean for this show? But I think we've talked before about the difference between like an awesome, intriguing ending and a cliffhanger. I think this is probably the most epic cliffhanger we've ever had, where basically she poofs everyone that can be poofed. So the Yellow Quartz fusion, Opal, and Garnet all get poofed and all become just gems. And then Stevonnie is thrown into what appears to be some sort of gem jail. And that's where the episode ends.
Yeah.
Criticise that recap.
Well, I mean, you skipped out the end of the dream where he sees White and coughs up Rose's hair, but fine.
I mentioned the coughing of the hair.
You missed it. He meets White though, and that's when it happens. Just saying.
That was basically like an 11-minute recap of the whole fucking thing. What more do you want from me? Legitimately.
That was great. I was playing the joke up still, but evidently, Chris, now your feelings are hurt, so I'm gonna.
Yeah, they are.
It's a great episode. So much amazing stuff happening. Overall opinions though, Chris. Where do you stand? Like, how does this sort of match up to, like, just in terms of like its overall quality? Where do you think this stands in the pantheon of Steven Universe? That's a big question.
Before I answer that, can I just say, if people were wondering what that noise was, just been brought in a piece of toast. I've not eaten all year. That's awesome. Thank you very much. Do we have enough bread for lunch though?
Yes, there's 4 slices left.
There's 4 slices left for lunch. Brilliant. There we go. That's Jess, everyone. All right. You know what? It's it's bizarre because so I just got to look at this toast now and give my overview. So and apple.
It's all right, Chris. I talk a lot. You won't have to wait long till you can eat it.
No, I'm joking. And also, I thought you were going to play the poor you having to do the podcast you've started and committed to doing and not just sit and eat. Anyway, so for the beginning of it, I was like, this is awesome, but it was awesome in like a getting to know gem culture kind of way and digging into the society and the home world. And so I was like, this is awesome. And I was like, but in a way, this is going to be most awesome on rewatch or most awesome on like hearing like the discussions on the Discord and like looking into more theories. And you can like, there's a hell of a lot in this to drill down on. So I'm watching it going, this is great, but I think this is going to become a finer wine with rewatch. So how do you judge it? Like I'd never really experienced an episode like that of this show.
Yeah.
But again, like that really isn't a criticism because so many times with this show something happens and I can't remember what it was. I think it was the rose reveal, and you were like, "What do you want in the next episode?" And I was like, "I want an episode of them just sitting around talking about the logistics of how this works." but we're not going to get that, and this isn't that.
Well, that's what you got. That is what you got.
Yeah, that is true. That is what we got. But like, do you know what I mean? There've been many times where it's like, let's just kind of get a bit more detail, and this episode does that. But then, on top of so that would have been great, and that would have been enough. My review would have been like, yeah, it was awesome to see a bit more and explore a bit more. That moment though, where they start dancing, and you do just get a nod. I literally went, oh shit, and then like I say, that cliffhanger is awesome. Like it's gotta be up there surely, because like as a holy shit, what happens next moment. It's huge. Like, just describe that to someone. Because now, as far as we know, every single person, every single gem in the crystal gems is poofed. Like, we don't know whether Amethyst and Peridot are back. So
Lapis and Peridot, you mean?
Sorry, Lapis and Peridot are back. So as far as we're aware, with the tangible, loose exception of Bismuth, all of the crystal gems we've known for more than 3 episodes are poofed. That's insane. That's madness. And you're like, how are they going to get out of it? What's going to happen? My hope would be that Amethyst collects them up, maybe. Like, we know that she comes back quite quickly, so maybe she comes back and, like, scoops up the others.
I'd like that.
One way of doing it, maybe. Huh?
I'd like that.
Yeah, I think that would be quite cool. But what does it mean? In their heads, they're in this Era 3 shit. So, do the crystal gems still exist? Do they still have stars? What happens? It's great. I thought it was awesome. It was a mind-meltingly good episode.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I think it's... You can eat your toast now, Chris. It's okay.
Thank you. I mean, it was very sweet of her to give it to me, but this is buttered appallingly. Anyone would think we had a butter shortage.
Oh, there's just not enough butter. I thought you were saying it wasn't spread evenly and like you had like lumps of it in places and stuff where it's pooling. You mean that there's just not enough butter on the toast?
Well, there's one lump and then just fuck all. It's almost like spread it yourself toast. I'm incredibly grateful and, love it a bit.
You don't sound incredibly grateful. That was the toast equivalent to saying essentially, I'm not racist, but because you're like, I'm incredibly grateful, but. But it's been buttered like shit. I mean, in a minute, guys. This is the bit where I have to traditionally cut out Chris, being horrendous because I cut it out every week. I have to cut out something. He'll be like, oh lady, oh girl, where's the girl? Bring back a knife and correct the buttering on this toast.
Me just yelling like Christian Bale with the sound guy.
Yeah. She's like, I brought you some toast. Yeah. Oh, good for you. I'm trying to do a podcast. You're there in the background. You are done. We are done professionally.
People don't talk enough about that.
Yeah, I don't. It's literally insane that audio exists. Anyway, it's the sort of stuff that probably happens on like 80% of film sets that we never get to hear, and we finally got to hear it. It's just everyone acting like children. True. Anyway, right? No, I agree with you. It's a brilliant episode. I think there's so much to unpack from it, and I think that is kind of the genius of the show, is that they get to do two things at once sometimes with this. And like, you're right, it's an episode where you just be like, oh, it's just mythology everywhere. It's mythology everywhere. But it's not. It's also this incredibly cool story about Stephen being fed up with the pomp and circumstance of Homeworld, and Connie being the one to hold out a hand and be like, no, you need to be you here. You can't. There have to be concessions, obviously, but you can't completely become what they want you to become. And Connie holding out her hand in that moment and them going and dancing, I think is a really powerful statement. I think
do you not feel a little bit like surely she knew that was a bad idea?
Yeah, maybe, but I think that she found it was probably more important for Stephen to be Stephen than honest about himself than for than to lose himself in all of this. I think that's a risk she was willing to take, and it's interesting. A lot of people have picked up, and I've seen several posts about it now. There was a line on the episode, I think it was Legs from Hit a Homeworld, where Greg asked Garnet, "Will everyone be okay?" And Garnet says, "Stephen will be okay."
Yeah.
Which you can interpret two ways. You can interpret that as, well, we know for sure Stephen will be okay because he's Pink Diamond. They're not going to hurt Pink Diamond. You know, they might lock him away or whatever, but that he will physically be. He should be okay. There's no reason for them to hurt him, which I think is a bit optimistic. And then the other interpretation is she's seen into the future, and as far as she's concerned, the only person that's completely safe is Stephen. And there's a certain amount of truth to that, looking at this episode, isn't there?
Yeah.
And there have been a lot of, I've seen hashtag blame Connie, and I think, I think not. I can see how someone would get there. You could argue that, Connie, if you just calm down a bit, we'd probably be all still, on the surface, in the surface, hanging out with the Diamonds, trying to figure this out amicably. But you've maybe pushed the boundary too far. But I just think she understood the importance of keeping Stephen. I think because what good is his negotiations with White if he becomes Pink? Like he's not going to defend the Earth if he doesn't remember what he's defending. And I'm not saying he's like this weird, naive morph thing that's just going to become a Diamond and just adhere to all the traditions. But I just think she was like determined to just show him a little bit of what he's fighting for,
When he was resisting that, and when he was like, "No, we need to stick to the formalities. We need to do it this way." I did wonder again whether we were going to see a bit of essentially breaking Stephen, like seeing Stephen go right to the verge of becoming a Diamond, and then maybe they ask him to do something he doesn't want to do, and he gets pulled back. And I think that this show could do a character arc like that successfully, but I think you would have to potentially to do that, you would have to potentially go against some stuff we already know about him. And I think that cutting it off here and having Connie be the one to cut it off is a very powerful way of not doing that. When she first was like, "Come on, let's go," I would not blame Connie. I don't think that's fair, but I was like, Jesus, Connie's being a bit exuberant, isn't she?
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly.
I don't know if they quite.
It's clearly unwise. We can all see where it's going, and that flying in the face of tradition in front of the Diamonds is. But I think she is, like Stephen, pissed that White's not there, because I'm sure she brings it up. Because doesn't Stephen say like, but White, and she's like, well, White's not here. White didn't turn up. So this is on you now, like, because I suppose from she's done the calculations. Blue and Yellow have not given them any real trouble yet, so she's looked around and gone, well, the biggest threat to us was White, and White ain't here. So
I do think, did you on
so unwise is probably the phrase. I think maybe she underestimated the anger of Gem Society, but she was valuing correctly, I think, the need to keep Stephen grounded. and remembering what he's fighting for, and that people on Earth are free to have fun and dance at a party, and not forced to sort of like sit in a chair being greeted by everyone, So I don't know. There's a balance there. I think of like, yes, she didn't think it through properly because I think her only experience with Yellow and Blue, other than the fight on the beach, is that they've been pretty amicable with them. So it's a bit like, you can sort of see how she got there, and maybe in her head she'd sort of done the math and it didn't seem problematic.
Well, on the blue and yellow thing, a question for you that comes from that is, I was at first, less so when I watched it the second time, but when Blue was kind of giving the rules and dividing Steven apart from everyone, the first time I watched it, I was like, this feels way more like a Yellow thing, and way more like something Yellow would do and say. And then on the second time I watched it, I kind of went, well, maybe it's their way of going, look, Blue is the more emotional of the two, but Blue, getting those two to go against White, to go against their culture and upbringing, isn't going to be simple. It's going to be more difficult than you think, because regardless of how in tune with her emotions Blue is, she's still a stickler for the rules. She's still going to present the rules, discuss the rules, etc.
Yeah, I think it's important to establish that, because I think it is easy for people to assume that Blue's the softer of the two. But she's as much a part of that society as anyone. All right, maybe she's slightly fonder of Steven, but that doesn't mean she's not, rigidly conforming to Gem society and Gem custom. She'd have to be. She's one of the Gem leaders. For that society to be playing out the way it is, all of the leaders have to be on board with it. Do you know what I mean? Like, it wouldn't work otherwise. And this is why Steven's presence now is so problematic, because he's not on board with it, and that's gonna mess some shit up.
Did you feel, this feels like more of a Yellow thing, or?
No, not at all. Because I like you. I put it. I don't think they've at any point really established or suggested that Blue wasn't as much of a stickler for Gem Society as anyone else. You can infer that from her being slightly more in touch with emotions, because the show has sort of paralleled the two, hasn't it? Like, the people who are a little bit more aware of their emotions have been traditionally people who have been a bit more free thinking and a bit more sort of open in the show, and the more rigid ones have always been less in tune with their emotions. You look at Peridot, where she started, not in tune with her emotions, rigidly stuck with Homeworld's ways of thinking, got more in touch with their emotions, disassociated from that. So I think I think there's a certain amount of, and this isn't you specifically, I just mean in general, people have, I think, put a little bit of that on Blue as well, because Blue has come across more emotional, more caring, particularly regarding Pink. But I think really that's the only example of it. Otherwise, she's been as cold, if not colder, than Yellow. I think that it makes a lot of sense for the writers at this point, for the crew at this point, to sort of make sure we establish that Blue is as much of a stickler for this society as Yellow or White or any of them. So don't rely on Blue's protection. And I think it's actually
Blue's not going to be the savior.
Correct. And I think what's important about that is, one of the things that makes this episode feel so tense is you realise none of them are on Steven's side. And I think, that's actually adds a lot of tension to the episode. So I actually think it's quite a smart choice from a writing perspective to have that scene play out with Blue, because there is an element of like, oh fuck, Steven has no one here. Like, even Blue's getting a bit grumpy with him. As she leaves, she says, something like, oh, will you ring in the ball? And Steven's like, what? And she's like, fine, I'll do everything, and then leaves. It is a proper snippy, bitchy moment from Blue, and I just, all that went through my head at that time is, he's fucked. He's absolutely fucked here. There's no way he's not gonna do something earthy at this party and get himself immediately in trouble. A lot of things went through my head. I think we even discussed the possibility of him becoming Stevonnie last episode or the episode before of this podcast, in front of the Diamonds, and where that would lead him. So Stevonnie crossed my mind.
We both did. I think I certainly, maybe not you, but I think I was predicting we probably weren't going to see Stevonnie, which is so silly on reflection. And I just love how it's such a clever title, because they're together, but everyone is shocked and appalled, so they are alone.
Yeah. Or you could even look at it more practically and say they're together, but they're alone in that cell.
Yeah, but in the very end, yeah. Because they're not really alone, I suppose, because of the other fusions coming to their defense. I love that Garnet went anyway. Like, I think that's awesome.
Yeah, I think you might have missed that they actually established that Garnet... See, this is the same thing me and Nadia did on our first viewing. I don't know if it's just the way it's designed. So on Nadia's and my first viewing, we were like... When they were dancing, we were like, oh, that Ruby and Sapphire look really awkward. I wonder if that's our Ruby and Sapphire. And then they fused. But there's actually a line when Steven establishes that they've shown up as Ruby and Sapphire.
Well, I heard that line, but I was a bit. I was like, has he identified that it's
Yes.
our Ruby and Sapphire, or is he just like the rubies and sapphires are here? Like,
no, he
does say the Ruby and Sapphire are here. So.
Yeah, he says Ruby and Sapphire here. I hope they didn't just show up because I said I wanted them here. Like, I hope they didn't go to the trouble of splitting just on my account. So he does actually acknowledge it, but I think you're right. I think the way it's phrased, I think it's easy to miss that that's what he's getting at, I think. Because the first time we watched it, Nadia clocked that Ruby and Sapphire were there from the awkward dancing, not from the Steven's line. And then the second time we watched it, we were like, how the fuck did we miss that? He literally says that here. So there's a lot to unpack. So let's go through some of the actual details. First of all, Chris, the biggest mind-melting moment happened within about 2 seconds of the episode starting, which is Pearl Swap basically confirmed.
Why? Because we see a pink pearl.
It's not just any pink pearl, Chris. Look at the design. She's got the buns that White Pearls has. She has the gem placement that White Pearl has. That is the White Pearl, but pink. And the only reason that would be in Steven's mind is if it was some sort of callback. Why would he imagine a gem he's already met being pink?
It
just doesn't make any sense. So it really does confirm. It doesn't, I suppose, completely confirm the swap, though, because people are suggesting that our Pearl was white. I'm starting to actually lean towards a theory that our Pearl is just another Pearl that was pulled off the production line and given to Steven. Because the idea that our Pearl has another big secret is the barrier for a lot of people in the Pearl swap theory. So a lot of people don't like that, that she's had this moment of catharsis to tell Steven everything and she's still keeping something from him. That's the barrier for a lot of people with the Pearl swap theory. So that
would make sense of those flashbacks where Pearl and Pink Diamond is frustrated. Pearl's very eager to please and very much like, I can do this, I can do that. And that feels like a new Pearl eager to do their job and please, as opposed to a Pearl that was white.
Yes.
You know what I mean? If you think about her behaviour, she behaves more like a new Pearl or new to the role and eager to please than she does a swap.
Exactly. So my adjusted theory isn't Pearl swap as such. Because I was thinking a lot about the barriers for people with Pearl swap, and that one does strike me as being legitimate. I think it is true that if Pearl had yet another secret, that would feel like it shat on the catharsis of, now I can tell you everything. Now I'm being honest with you. So I think, unless they're going to go down a her memory was erased route, which I just don't think is likely, I think that there was a swap in the Pink's original Pearl ended up being this mangled Pearl that White is currently sort of living through. But I don't think our Pearl was originally White's anymore. So my new theory is it was just Pink that had the swap, Pink Pearl. And that our Pearl was a brand new Pearl given to Pink to replace that one. I also think I'm slightly adjusting my reasoning for that Pearl being removed. I think that Pearl was indulging Pink's sillier side, not necessarily in relation to her love of life and wanting people to this weird obsession she had with like freedom and all that stuff. I don't think it's I don't think she was that far down that rabbit hole really until she got to Earth. but I do think she had like a sillier side, like juggling, like which is a good reference to last week's episode. You know, the Pink.
Yeah, she was a juggler. Well, yes, but
Yeah, exactly. So the idea that because if you look at that dream sequence, Pink Pearl is very much indulging Pink's juggling and weird behavior. So I don't think it was actually, which actually makes it more horrifying, because I think everyone's jumped to like really extreme rule breaking as the reason that White would destroy this pearl. I'm actually starting to think it's even more tragic that it was just something as simple as she was indulging Pink's sillier side.
Yeah.
Which is even more heartbreaking when you think about it, because that's such a small thing to like to basically hollow out a pearl. I mean, because again, more debate this week about, because we saw White Pearl again, because she is speaking in White's voice. You know, how much of her is left? So. I think there is nothing left. I think she has been absolutely hollowed out at the core. What I think is interesting is, though, she has a cracked gem by the look of it, right? Can Steven heal her?
But is she also
or is she too far gone?
And is she actually, in a way, White? Is White somehow projecting into her to the point where, like, this isn't just, she's not going to go and report what's just happened to White. White is seeing through her eyes.
I think so too. I think White is in her. I think White is controlling her like a puppet, for sure. The phrasing, I've not got the transcript in front of me, but the phrasing when she arrived was that she would observe sort of as White. How did she phrase it? Let me see if the transcript is on the wiki. I bet it isn't, because I'm never that lucky. We're a bit early. Oh no, the episode transcript here. Jesus Christ. Can I just say, well done to the... Oh no, it's empty. Balls. Okay. I was just about to say well done to the crew, not to the crew, to the Redditors and the Discord people who have put together that so quickly, but it's blank. The page exists, but there is nothing on it. So I can't remember the exact dialogue, but basically that she phrases it in a way that made me very much feel like White was watching through her. So yeah, I think so. What's your perspective on Pearl Swap now? Has it changed, or do you not agree with it? Do you think that makes more sense?
No, I think it's just what we've just talked through. I think that it's definitely conceivable that White's was Pink's, but I think just thinking through how Pearl was in those early encounters and those flashbacks, I think our Pearl is a new Pearl.
Yeah, she didn't seem experienced at all, did she?
For me, mind melting is the cliffhanger still. So I don't know if it's the most mind melting, but it's a damn good detail I didn't necessarily pick up on.
Yeah, it was the first thing I saw.
It's one of those well, I think I remember watching it and going, I need to ask Dan about that, or watch it again and compare the two. I just then didn't get. I just wanted to watch the whole episode rather than drilling.
But the design is so specific. Those hair buns that we've only previously seen on White Pearl, it's very much that White Pearl. I think you'd have trouble. I think the Pearl Swap, the anti-vaxxers of the Steven Universe world, the anti-Pearl Swap people. No, I'm kidding. That's a really horrible comparison. No, the people who are not for that theory would have trouble, I think, now suggesting that at least White Pearl wasn't at some point Pink's. I think that's very close. It's close to confirmed as we're going to get without them outright saying it, which is probably the next step. I'm frustrated that Steven didn't pick it up, but I suppose dreams are weird and confusing. You don't remember all the details.
Yeah, I was going to say, you might not even remember all the details.
Yeah, so it's a shame. But the dream was pretty awesome in general, actually. I really liked him coughing up the hair. We knew that was coming because the trailer gave that away, but I still just think it was visually really cool. So yeah, I do have. We'll get to it later if that's okay. But I have, based on some minor leaks, very minor, from a Twitter post that Cartoon Network put up. I do have a theory about what happens next, but I'd like to put that at the end of the episode so that anybody who wants to stay leak free can do so. also now have a bit more information about the song Escapism. And again, I will put that at the end of this episode, and we'll say, all right, that's the discussion of the episode done. We're now going to step into discussion of next week that will include some leak stuff cut off here. Is that okay? We do it that way?
Yeah. That sounds good to me.
All right, so let's just go through a couple more details, if we can, about the episode itself. Blue Pearl drawing.
Yeah, I mean, let's be honest. That's not brilliant art, is it? Step it up a little bit. No. I thought that was a fascinating detail. I wanted to go back to the trial episode and see if she was like drawing.
She was.
Because
you're correct.
That's awesome.
She was drawing exactly what was happening. She had a drawing of Stephen in the trial. Absolutely. Yeah. That's 100% backed up by history.
And I would like to, at some point, like take those images frame by frame, I'd like to read someone else's analysis of that as opposed to doing it myself, because of laziness. But I thought that was such a fun detail. I thought I liked less the that's your thing. You like to model. That felt almost like
that felt a bit tacked on.
Thrown in.
Yeah, it did.
But the notion of those two having personalities and exploring those a bit more, and if the diamonds can't be broken, maybe their pearls can. I thought that was really fascinating.
Yeah, I agree. And I think I've seen some people theorizing that, so in one of the images, it's clearly Yellow Diamond poofing someone. People seem to feel like it's the moment from the trial where she poofed the Zircons. I don't know if you recall her doing that.
Yeah. The Zircons were the
lawyers.
The lawyer.
Yeah, so Yellow zapped them and poofed them towards the end of that trial. So some people are saying that the picture we were looking at of her zapping someone in Together Alone was that moment, but we never saw Blue draw that originally because that moment was immediately followed by Stephen escaping, I think. I think that's when the trial sort of got a bit out of hand. So, I thought that was a really neat detail, and I agree with you. I also felt modelling felt a bit tacked on, but they did give us that glorious image of Yellow Pearl looking at herself and sort of leaning her head back with her hand behind, like posing, which I thought just the best visual.
It was a good visual.
When these stuffy pearls like break that and do something a little like, indicates they are living, breathing creatures of their own that are independent and have thoughts and feelings. Like when they break the illusion of gem society, because it is an illusion, it's becoming very clear that it's not that gem society is emotionless and is feelingless and is, they're not, they don't explore talents, because they don't have them or don't use them or whatever. It's clearly that they're all just hiding, and that's tragic. And the more we see of it, the more tragic that becomes. So these little moments.
Obviously, the fusion at the end is obviously a big.
Well, that was going to be my next point. I want to talk. That fusion. We'll get to that in a second.
I just say with the Pearl pose, I just like anything that I feel can heighten Pearl's rap career videos, and they can definitely do a lot with that sort of pose.
You're actually right. Yeah, that's a really good point. Mackenzie, get on it. MK Atwood, get on it. You've got no time. Do it now, immediately. I wish for when this podcast is finished, I wish to immediately go to your YouTube channel and find in some way that pose used in a video. So I legitimately like. MK Atwood does not listen to this podcast, I'm sure. It's worth noting. But I honestly feel that it's like really cool to see when they break that, because I think. Steven's fighting for something now. Like, it's hard to explain, but there was a part of me that always just went, if that's just how Gem Society is, and there's just a handful of gems that feel differently, just save them. Save the handful that feel differently, and if the rest of Gem Society wants to be rigid and run by that sort of, thinking, let them. Like, that's fine too. Like, you live how you want to live, right? And if the gems want to live in this weird, rigid caste society, and they're happy like that, fine as far as I'm concerned. As long as everyone's happy, I don't really give a shit. But there are clearly gems that are unhappy because we got introduced to the off-colours. So part of me, prior to this sort of arc, was going like, at some point, Stephen just needs to rescue those who want to be rescued, right? And the rest of them can stay toiling away on Homeworld, I suppose, as far as I'm concerned. But now it's becoming very clear that everyone's unhappy. That no one likes this cast system.
I think they did a really good job of like wide, for lack of a better term, I know it's animation, but wide angle shots of like the crowd, and they gave all the gems weren't stood in uniform, as in uniformity, not clothing. Some of them were looking, some of them were peering, they were nudging each other. Like they gave personality to the crowd, implying that it wasn't just a crowd of uniform following gems.
Correct. Which means that like everyone is got that streak of freedom and free will that they want to do things and they want to live lives maybe different to what they're being told to do. And this weird totalitarian, you're a Zircon, you're going to be a lawyer, you're a Peridot, you're going to essentially be tech support, you're a Bismuth, you're going to build things like that. Society is clearly like making everyone feel very repressed. And I think in a weird way, and I suppose we'll get to it now, that gem is one of the maybe one of my favorite moments of the entire show. Full stop. Because it represents so much. Well, first of all, it's a gag. Because it's like, you have to go through me, and then, and me! And everyone sort of just looks around, and Garnet literally shrugs like, I have no idea who this is. Which is just a brilliantly funny moment. And then it turns to, like, affection for this gem, when she's like, I knew I couldn't be the only one. And then it turns to heartbreak. And it runs the gamut of those three feelings in like 12 seconds.
Do you think the gag underplays the heart and the triumph?
No,
I'm
not
saying it does. I'm just asking.
I honestly don't think it does. I think it's pitched perfectly because you laugh with the gag, and it's very clear immediately that no one knows this gem. So it's like what's happening is immediately clear, and you're laughing. Then there's the I knew I couldn't be the only one line, which suddenly makes you just have this gush of like affection for this unknown gem. Like you love that gem in that moment. You do. If you have a heart at all, you absolutely are endeared by that gem who's clearly lived in secret for so long. Like, incredible. And they set that gem up earlier in the episode, by the way, it's worth noting. There are a couple of moments in the episode when the two gems that formed that fusion make eye contact. Like when I think blue or yellow enters the room, there's a shot of them and they're like looking at each other shiftily, which is really sweet. Because they're clearly hiding something. And it's immediately like affection, and then yellow steps in and it's heartbreak. And it is 12 seconds of television, Chris. And I cannot think of a 12 seconds of television that have run such a gamut of emotions for me. To be laughing, to feel affection for a character I've never met before, to being absolutely distraught. I mean, it's no time at all. It's an incredible moment.
But what's so amazing about it is if you really kind of sit and think about it, maybe you could end up at a point where you're predicting that ending. And you certainly, when they begin to dance, you certainly know where that's going. But but in the moment, watching the episode, complete and utter shock at what happens at the end. Like you don't watch it going, oh well, she's gonna poof all of them. It's fucking madness when that starts happening, and you're like, shit, Opal, shit, this person, God, fuck, and you're like, shit, everyone's poofed. This is nuts. Like it's so good. It's so thrilling.
Again, that's why this episode is incredible. It's got character stuff with Stephen and Connie. I feel like very much like Stephen having to just go along with it, trudging along, and Connie being that voice of no, be yourself. This is important, which I think is a really sweet and important thing to have in the episode. I think it keeps Stephen grounded. So you've got all that stuff. Then you've got a mythology person's dream episode. There's just so much shit crammed into this. Then you've got a look at that sort of the way the show has explored representation and people who are having to hide who they are. With that in that moment I just described with the two gems fusing, and then you've immediately got action, like insane, like everyone's just being murdered action, and then you've got a cliffhanger, like that plot wise you just go, where the fuck do they go next? This episode had everything. And it had funny bits too. We talked about the two pearls. That whole modelling thing, despite feeling tacked on, did make me laugh. The pose particularly, so there's plenty to laugh at. There's plenty, there's plenty to get mythology from. There's tons of character stuff, and then there's all this other awesomeness just happening around it. Like, I mean, even the Garnet. We've not even talked about the Garnet moment yet. When Stephen hugs Garnet all teary-eyed, like, I wanted to do this together. Like, oh come on, like, give me a break, show, like. Can we go back to Earth, please, and find out what the Frymans are doing? I'm bereft. I'm out, Chris. I'm not even taking it all in anymore. This is ridiculous.
You would be so angry if escapism was about one of the kids wanting to escape the fry shop.
I don't think I would. I need a break. It's killing me.
If escapism is sung by Ronaldo, you would be fucking livid.
Yeah, Ronaldo. Oh my god, has anyone actually thought of that one yet? That's of all the different people that people have applied that song to, Lapis and Pearl and Rose and all the different people have tried to put the lyrics to that song to. Has anyone ever tried to make it make sense for Ronaldo? I'm bringing up the lyrics to Escapism right now.
Was that your concluding thoughts on the episode then? Because I want to hear the escapism stuff. Are we moving on to the slightly spoilery stuff? That's a nice summary. I think you summed it up nicely.
Yeah, I mean, unless I can think of any more details later on, then yeah, I think. I suppose we could quite quickly do the triv before we go into the slightly.
Stuff. I thought you were going through triv. Yeah, give me some triv.
There's not much, and it has been very nicely cleaned up by Bianca, because they noted that last week there was triv. I was going, that's not really triv, is it? And like the triv page for this had existed for like 30 seconds at that point, so they coordinated it with the time we were recording today, so that Bianca could filter through them prior to me getting to it, which is just incredible. We have the best listeners, we really do. Purging useless trivia and saving us from the heartache of that.
I did love someone yesterday put like, it's this many hours to the episode and then this many hours to the boys record, and I was like, that's sweet that like our recording session was also a countdown.
Yeah, I think that might very well have been related to the Triv thing. They were trying to coordinate it so that they got it. But yeah, it's nice. And if you want to join the conversation, feel free to join us on the Discord, link in the description. You can come have a chat with the rest of us, and you can meet some of the people we keep referencing on the show. I keep making mental note to stop doing it, because I feel like if you listen to this podcast for the first time and we're like, get on it, cram, or one of our usual jokes about to the community. I'm not going to stop referencing them entirely, but I do feel like sometimes it probably might be a bit alienating for new listeners. So, but Bianca did a great job. So yeah, let me quickly go through the little bit of trivia there is. There isn't a lot, but it's worth us doing. The title of the episode refers to the season 1 episode Together Alone. Both episodes feature Stevonnie. We've all put that together now. We talked about it last week. I can't remember where we landed, but I think we even maybe suggested the idea last week that Stevonnie might crash the party. I don't think any of us seriously committed to it and said that's the theory, but I definitely think we referenced that as a possibility.
Yeah, I think we definitely had that discussion. Yeah.
As of this episode, Yellow Diamond has poofed 10 gems on screen. The defending Zircons, defending and prosecuting Zircon, Peridot, Lapis, Ruby, Sapphire, Pearl, Amethyst, and the 2 gems. Here's one bit. Okay, we'll do this. The 2 gems that made up that fusion. There has been some confusion regarding the fusion. This is not on the trivia page, but basically, there is a credit for jades or a jade in the text, in the credits for this episode. So people have been assuming that the 2 gems either formed jade that's what the name of that fusion is, or those 2 gems were jades and we didn't get the name of the fusion, which makes sense. Jade is a traditionally, or is thought of traditionally as a green type of gem, right? Mm-hmm. But the subtitles for this episode, you know those weird cog type gems?
Yeah, the ones that complimented how Stephen looked at
Correct.
the party. Yeah.
When they spoke, that text was attributed to Jade. So it said like Jade and then had the dialogue, which they were not green. Now Jade as a substance doesn't have to be green. It is just traditionally thought of that way because I guess it comes out that way more often. I don't really know the exact etymology of or whatever the word I'm looking for is, like the physiology of jade as a mineral on this planet is, but there's been a lot of confusion as to where the jade name applies here because of that. I think it is most likely that the subtitles had a mistake in them, but what's really interesting is that Nephrite and the Jades share a voice.
Oh, cool.
And Nephrite is a type of jade.
Oh, nice.
So that is
the same actor?
Yeah, exactly. Correct.
Oh, that's cool.
Now, that's not in the triv yet, I guess, because we're still trying to sort out who exactly Jade refers to. But there you go. Also, from the credits of last week's episode, we didn't discuss this, but the Pebbles are voiced by both Zach Callison and Voice of Rose, Susan Egan.
I did think, obviously, the Pebbles. It's clear if we discussed briefly.
We should address that.
The Pebbles were seemingly hiding from, we assumed, everyone, and we, in fact, specifically discussed whether they hid from Pearl. Clearly not is the answer to that this week.
That's on me. That was me leading that charge, and I was very wrong, obviously, because they're immediately just out and in the open this week at the beginning of the episode.
Pebbling all over the place, making shit for Amethyst.
One of them still has Steven's phone. The one that stole Steven's phone last week still has it.
That made me laugh.
But I think, so they were credited last week, I think, to Susan Egan voice-wise, and this week they were credited to Zach. And I think the reasoning is that they're being voiced by both. I think the suggestion is any new ones that are created now will be Zach's voice.
Oh, cool. That's awesome.
And then the ones that were there originally are Susan's voice, the voice of Rose, for those of you who don't know. Susan Egan, who I recently discovered was the voice of Meg in Hercules, a film I loved when I was growing up. And
there you go.
I went back and watched a clip of it and was like, why is Rose Quartz speaking from Meg's face? And that's why. It was very disconcerting. I did not approve.
That's awesome.
Both
ruined.
You
went back
both ruined and
after
enhanced,
knowing or without knowing.
Without knowing, and then was like, "What's happened? Why does Meg sound like Rose / Pink?" And then was like looked it up and was like, "Same voice." And now it's either ruined or enhanced. You can just make your own mind up on that. Nice. So, in terms of trivia, so I get back to that very quickly before we go on to the sort of slightly more spoilery and talking about the future stuff. Blue Diamond remarks that the ball should mark the beginning of Era 3 on Gem Homeworld due to Pink's return. This sort of semi-confirms, as was speculated, that Era 2 was a direct result of Pink Diamond's supposed shattering. So the second era of gem culture does seem to have started with Pink Diamond vanishing. Yeah. Let's see. Oh, this is an interesting one, but I don't really know the thing, so it's hard for me to. I'll just read this out verbatim because I'll have to look into this one. But the first few seconds of music when Yellow Diamond enters during Stephen's dream are based on the Ballad of Unhatched Chicks theme from Mussorgsky's Pictures at an exhibition. Mussorgsky's?
No idea.
I don't know how to pronounce that. I'm going to look it up later, but I'm sure that's true and accurate. And yeah. Oh, let me have a quick look. Cool. Oh, he was a Russian composer?
Okay. Cool.
Looks like a Russian
Good stuff. I like the little details they put in there like that.
Yeah, I was both noting actually on the subject of the music. The music in this episode was fucking brilliant. The weird
Yeah, it was awesome.
gem that was making the music up in the top while the dance was happening, and the way the cogs were all spinning around each other. That combination of, and it's that that like weird sort of. It was in the trailers, that sting, that musical sting, but holy shit, that works so well here.
Yeah, because it was both like formal and haunting. So.
Yeah, it was so good, really good, great music. 10 points to the composer for this episode. Let's see any other quick bits on trivia before we move on. The trivia here seems to suggest that Blue Pearl's drawings were from the trial. I don't know if that's confirmed or not, but I'll take that as why not? Makes sense.
Yeah. That would make a lot of sense for them to put that Easter egg in.
And then the last two we've already discussed. Steven's dream, he was shown to be juggling, which was stated to be a talent of pink diamonds in the previous episode. And Steven's phone is still with the pebble that stole it from the previous episode. That's a great detail.
I love that.
So there you go. That's the
only thing I wish they'd made more of a gag was when he was like, "Call me Steven." I really wanted them to call him Lasagna again. But
yes, I said exactly that to Nadia. Pink lasagna.
It's a shame to see that ongoing joke die, but we still got the pebble in the phone.
I still like the idea that in like 2 or 3 episodes when we've forgotten it was a thing, one of them will say pink lasagna. I like the idea that will come back. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to talk about predictions for next week's episode, which sadly will be informed by some leak stuff. So if you don't want to know anything about leaks, I'm afraid this is where you leave us. If assuming that is your case. So thank you for listening, and we'll speak to you next week. For those of you interested in sticking around to find out some slightly more spoilery bits, nothing huge. It's worth noting. Nothing massive. I'm not going to be like, and there's a picture and it's Lars and he's back. There's nothing that concrete, but there are some bits that we've had, little teasers that have been given away that will hint towards what's going to happen next week. If you, again, don't want to know them, off now. Otherwise, come along. So, Chris, escapism. They put up the listing for it on, because they're releasing all these songs on Spotify the day that the episodes go out.
Yeah.
So they did it last week with Familiar. Now, we knew before we got into this week's episode it was unlikely that there was going to be a song this week because there was no Spotify tease for come back in 24 hours to listen to this song from the Steven Universe thing. But they did put up a thing that said come back next week to listen to Escapism. And they listed who sings on it. So we now know who sings Escapism.
Oh, wow. Awesome.
Yeah.
Who sings Escapism?
3 voices.
Yeah.
The voice of Steven. The voice of Connie, Grace Rollick,
yeah,
and AJ Michaela, who is the voice of Stevonnie.
Ooh, cool.
So Stevonnie will be singing, as will Steven, and as will Connie. Now, I'm a little disappointed that Susan Egan wasn't listed amongst them because my theory is a little bit, unless they've just cocked up on the listing, which is possible, but I don't think likely. I think I'm just gonna have to accept that my theory that it was Steven singing a joint duet with or Stevonnie singing a joint duet with his in tandem with his past self and learning how to escape.
You were ever theorizing Stevonnie was doing that way? It was Steven that you were theorizing was.
Yeah, but but the core of that wasn't so much exactly what state Steven was in. It was more about
right.
It was more about the time, the song sung over time, leading to Steven remembering or realizing how to escape.
But we could still get a song sung over time at some point.
Sure, but I really felt strongly it would be escapism because I liked the idea, and I still like the idea that Steven will get information from his past selves on how to escape this situation. So, in terms of teasers for, we'll break that down a little bit. How do you feel about that? Like that, so that song we've already heard, Escapism. We've heard Rebecca Sugar's cover of it, which, by the way, I think there's only 1 verse, 2 choruses in that version. I suspect there's more to that song than we have heard. I think there's another verse at least.
I would love it if the whole episode was Stevonnie in the cell. I don't think we will get that because isn't this leads directly into Battle of Heart and Mind, doesn't it?
Correct.
Oh, maybe you do get that, and then the episode ends with White coming for Steven. Maybe.
Yeah.
An episode that's just them two in the cell. But then again, I suppose what would they? It's not like they're fighting or anything. So what would they explore within that if it was just them two in the cell? But
I have a slight answer to that in a minute, but we'll come back to that.
Okay.
In terms of the song, Are we happy with that being the answer to who sings it? Because
I mean, it was one of those
plagued Steven Universe fans for over a year. Because Rebecca put that song out on the podcast, like it was a year ago. It was like late 2017.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where I didn't know about it a year ago, and I loved the theory of it being a duet over time. I think I think for you that was you liked the idea of that leading to How to Escape. Yes. I just liked the visuals and the concepts of a duet over time. So yes. I'm here going, well, we can still get that some other way. So that dream's not died. And I like the answer a lot, but I will hold my hands up and say that I don't think that that mystery of who sings escapism plagued me as much as it's plagued others.
Yeah, I mean, originally people were leaning towards it being Lapis because we just had a rumor that Lapis was going to have a song upcoming, which of course happened, and it was Distant Shore. The original theory, everyone was convinced it was Lapis. Really,
hopefully people aren't disappointed because you got to see it in the context and see it in the episode.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. I don't think anyone's disappointed as such. I think people are just a bit like. I don't know. I just think after a year of speculation on who sings this song, the confirmation was kind of like, oh, okay, well that makes sense.
But that's one of those. That's the shame of that. Then is how people have found out, because I guarantee you, if you found out the episode's called Escapism. But maybe if they didn't call the episode Escapism and just randomly in the next episode the song had started, people would have lost their fucking minds.
Yeah,
and be like, oh, it's escapism. And because you're finding out through Spotify. It's like finding out about spoilers for Captain America Civil War. It's like finding out about Giant Man because of a picture of a toy.
Yeah,
it's just not the same.
Yeah, no, I agree, and I think it's interesting because Rebecca certainly wouldn't have, or the crew wouldn't have intended it to play out like this, because my assumption is a year ago when they put that song on, they were like, this song is about 15 episodes away. It's not going to be a year till we get to that, is it? Come on, not realizing how barren the year would be for Steven Universe episodes. So it's 16 episodes across the year is pretty mad. So I can't imagine Rebecca did it with the intention of sort of throwing everyone off. But yeah, unless there's a mistake and the Spotify listing is wrong, which I think is unlikely, it seems like it's going to be Stevonnie. Excuse me, I burped as I spoke, and that was horrible. Stevonnie, Steven, and Connie singing, which suggests to me they're either going to start unfused singing and then fuse, or they're going to start singing the song fused and then unfuse as the song goes on. I think the second one is more likely.
Yeah, that would make more sense.
Yeah, because they're already fused at the end of this episode. So the cleanest way to do it is to pretty much start the next episode with the song, actually. Start the next episode with the song, or pretty close to, have them singing it as Stevonnie for the first verse and chorus, then split them, and then have the second verse and chorus as Steven and Connie duetting.
And then they get torn apart by White Diamond coming in and taking Steven.
Well, now we can talk about that. So we do have a little bit of an idea about what's going to happen next week. There are two things that happened. So first of all, there was a really annoying post about 4 or 5 weeks ago, before any of this aired, just before I think Legs went out on television. And it was like, Battle of the Heart and Mind coming soon. And it was on the Cartoon Network Twitter feed. And it had a still. And the still, it haunts me, Chris, that they put this out so soon. It's Steven led down in Pink's outfit with the ghostly version of him, like in Reunited, floating off with his head in in Connie's lap.
Right, yeah, I think I've seen that. I think you sent me that.
I might have done, yeah. So it's basically, in context now, that's clearly them in the cell and Steven, trying to come outside of himself to go and do something. Combine that with the teaser they aired for next week's episode, which was Steven and Connie in the cell and Steven being like, if only we could call someone, and then essentially being like, we could call someone. Like, that's kind of the hint. So the question is, who, how, and why? Personal theory? I think, my initial thought was Lars. Was that he gets out of himself and goes and talks to Lars. But then I thought about, I didn't think about it. Someone on the Discord actually said it. White Diamond. He was able to communicate with Yellow and Blue through that astral plane.
Yeah.
What if he's able to go communicate with White Diamond through the astral plane?
Which has been his entire... He won't stop fucking banging on about it. It's been his entire mission for the last few episodes to speak to White Diamond.
So...
Yeah, I think that would make sense. I think Lars would be awesome, but I was thinking about Lars, Dan.
Were you? That's
the other day.
Yeah.
The other day, as I do.
As you do. Yeah.
How we wouldn't get the... I don't think this is going to happen, because I think they're going to go down the route of giving us the drama of, like, Lapis and Bismuth, certainly. I think that's something hanging in the air, and we're going to want to see that. But Lion is still on Earth.
Correct.
So you could, at some point, do a big rescue with the off-colours, Lars, Lapis, Peridot, and Bismuth. They could go through Lion to get to Lars, potentially. Although, can only Stephen go through Lion? No, I don't know.
No, because Bismuth was in Lion's Mane, and he's he's brought Connie through Lion's Mane in the past as well.
Yeah, I know he's brought Connie, but he brought Connie through. If you see what I mean.
Oh, I see what you're saying. But, do you need the owner of the mystical pink realm to bring you into it? Does Stephen need to be touching Lion or Lars's hair to then bring a thing through?
Yeah,
I suppose. I don't know. Yeah, that's an interesting thought.
But like,
I hadn't thought about that, but.
I don't think we'll get that because I think they'll want to show us Bismuth and Lapis. Although I suppose you could then do another episode of like, hey, what's been going on with you guys? And then you get the story, because that's essentially how the new Crystal Gems played out. It was Connie telling Stephen the story.
Yes.
And you could easily do Peridot being like, oh wow, this is what happened. So I don't know if he's going to have them with him. I think that'd be fucking cool. But I just get the feeling... I don't think Stephen's going to go... I don't think our Lars moment is Stephen going to Lars. I think our Lars moment is Lars showing up. And that, I suppose, is what led me to Bismuth being... and the other Crystal Gems being with him. Because it's like, well, how would Lars know to show up?
Yeah, well, that's the thing. So this is... Well, then, unless when Stephen's calling someone, maybe he is trying to use his astral projection thing to call out to Lars for help.
Maybe, but he's been, I think, whoever suggested White Diamond, I think, is a much better idea. He's literally been banging on about...
as soon as it was said, I think I literally commented immediately under it, which is, great theory, because I think, should I credit the person? I should credit the person, right? Like, let me quickly open up the Discord. Won't take me a second. But I think, one second... I think what struck me, though, about the Lars situation is a lot of people keep saying, like, well, it doesn't make sense. You know, Lars should be on his way home. He can't be that close to Homeworld still, because he's been heading home for bloody God knows how many weeks. My answer to that is, Stephen and the Crystal Gems got to Homeworld, have been to Homeworld twice now, and both times it was a pretty quick journey. In Aquamarine's ship... and in the Diamond ship. Now, you can say, the Diamond ship's super fast, but Aquamarine's ship is a pretty standard ship. And when Lars stole Emerald's sun incinerator, or whatever it was called, it was described as Emerald's fastest ship. Why is he not home yet? The only explanation is him and the off-colours have been off rescuing other gems, maybe, or getting into some other biz, you know.
Well, yeah, I think he's scared to go home. He's found people that accept him and see him in this great leader way. He felt like a rejected loner. Like he threw away the cake. He felt he doesn't feel part of Earth. His character arc to me is him and Earth is he's avoiding Earth. He's going on adventures because he's a hero and a captain with the off colours. And on Earth, in his head, he's nobody.
I think it hurts his character arc if he thinks of it like that. I agree that he's found his purpose, so why go back to Earth? But I think avoiding Earth and like being scared to go back to Earth, or that, I don't know if that's still quite... I don't think that fits him anymore. I think he's beyond that.
Yeah, but he did he did die. Like, do you know, if you want to play it as, oh well, trauma has led to this, then you can do.
Yeah.
I think the off colors are the symbol for the rest.
I
of
agree with
Homeworld.
that element.
So,
I agree with the element of your theory that like, oh, he's found his place. So why would he go back? That part makes perfect sense to me. I agree. He's found a place where he actually belongs and fits in and is useful. And on Earth, he was a guy that went to a donut shop. So I totally buy that that's the reason he's not been particularly eager to get back to Earth. Like, I'll get there when I get there. That makes sense to me. But this notion that he's kind of like Earth represents him being worthless and that he's a bit scared to go back because of that, and like he doesn't want to go back to that. Like I don't know. I think he's beyond that now. I think he's never gonna not be Lars of the Stars now, whether he goes home or not.
But you say he's beyond that. But the very mention of Sadie having a good time
for a moment
and being a band on Earth made him for a moment digress back to Lars.
Yeah, he did. He did. Yeah, there was an element of regression there, I think, but it was brief, and then he snapped back into it. I don't know. I just think I like to think he's better than that now, because if he was still thinking like that enough to have not gone home, then he's still too much like the old Lars for me. I like that he's Lars of the Stars, and there's enough confidence there now in himself. Not complete confidence, obviously. He's not a different person, but enough confidence that that's not an issue. I think it's actually more fitting to me that the idea is he's not gone home yet because he's still helping Gems. He's been heading to different colonies and different places, getting mixed up in all sorts of stuff, helping other sort of off-color Gems, out of situations.
Helping off-color Gems leads into my theory about the reason I think we will see Lars and the off-colors is because the off-colors are the thing that could show the rest of Homeworld how you can be yourself and still form a team. The off-colors, and especially if there's more off-colors now as a result of their adventures, they are the answer to, well, hold on, we have to be this gem society because that's the way we've always been. Well, no, you don't. Look at this other society that has been born from people being themselves. The off-colors are potentially that symbol to break Homeworld and make Homeworld rebel because they can see that it's already happened, already been done.
Yeah, possibly. I would love for that to be the case. For some reason, it doesn't kind of, I don't know. For some reason, for me, that doesn't feel like what will happen. Even though when I think it through, that makes a lot of sense as a theory. I guess it's just because I feel like this has to be Steven's solution. I kind of feel like Steven has to be able to solve it.
But why? But Steven realizing that and getting them, it can still
maybe
be his solution.
Maybe you could make it work that way. Yeah, maybe. There's just something about that. There's a barrier somewhere there for me regarding it being someone else essentially convincing the Diamonds rather than Steven. I don't know. You're right. You could tie it to Steven, but something about that doesn't quite fit like where my head thinks it's going. But I do like it. If they did that, I'd be happy with that. I think that's it. I think it's a reasonable, like it's so I guess my barometer for how likely that is tweaking around, maybe saying not so much, but if they did that, if we were just taking it out of the likelihood of it happening, I would love for it to play out that way. That'd be great. I'd love for them to use the off colors in some way in the conclusion of the show. I think the off colors represent something really important, and I really hope the gem that got poofed, the fusion that got poofed with them today, is not just a one-off. I hope that character is imprisoned with the gems for Pearl, Ruby, Sapphire, and Amethyst, and that when Steven or whoever finally rescues them, he grabs them too, and they come along. I think it's I absolutely want that gem to not just be a one-off. I want to know more. I want to hear that gem talk more. I want to find out what kind of gem it is. I want to find out what kind of gems make it up. I want to know what its life was like on her. There's so much I want to know.
Yeah, what the story.
Man. Yeah. But I'd say one thing that's interesting is that Battle of Heart and Mind is the title of the next set of 4 episodes. Theoretically, there are 3 songs left to get through in that, assuming there's just one next week. If Escape, which there should only be one. I think there's a lot that needs to be tackled, and 2 songs in one episode might be problematic, depending on the way they execute it, obviously, as always. But there are 3 songs left. So Battle of Heart and Mind has 3 songs in it. And it's 4 episodes.
Just leading further to the supporting the theory that it's 4 separate episodes in a wanted style event as opposed to an hour of content.
Yeah, but I think what's cool as well is like people think about Battle of Heart and Mind. If this episode ends with Steven reaching through the void and coming face to face with White, wouldn't that be a hell of a setup for Battle of Heart and Mind?
Oh god, yeah. That's what I think. Whether it's him going off on the other plane and meeting her, or her snatching him away from Connie, I think this ends. I think escapism ends with White and Steven being face to face.
Yeah, I agree. That's 100%. Yeah, that's exactly what I was getting at. I think it does, and I think it ends that way. I don't think that whatever that conversation is, I don't think we're going to see it play out this week. I think this episode ends with them meeting.
Yeah.
And I think it wouldn't even surprise me if Steven, on his journey to try and find White in that realm, bumped into Blue and Yellow and conversed with them first.
Yeah.
And it was like, why did you do this?
I don't think...
Particularly with Yellow. Why would you do this?
I don't think, if I was a betting man, I don't think there's going to be too much cast next week. I think at most it's Steven, Connie, and then the Diamonds. But, I might be wrong.
Yeah, no, I would be
maybe,
on that bet,
maybe White Pearl. Although White Pearl is played by the person who plays White Diamond, so the cast theory would still be correct.
So there you go. Cool. So I think that's everything. It was a slightly more coherent conversation from me this week. I'm kind of thinking this will be the format of these going forward, in terms of like a recap, followed by general discussion of the episode, followed by Triv, and then we wrap it up with any leaks that will help us figure out what's coming next. So if we always end on that, we can help the people who don't want to listen to the leaks. I think it's a better way to do it. So I think we'll try and keep to this rough formula for these, because we're still figuring this out, because it's kind of a new podcast now, isn't it? Now we're doing up-to-date episodes.
Yeah, it's bizarre. Yeah.
Because the original premise of the podcast was me introducing Chris to Steven Universe, and now we've done that. He's up to date. We have the hiatus content where we talk about the news and stuff and whatever, do recaps of old episodes or whatever, revisits old episodes. These ones are a bit of an unknown, so I suppose we're still sort of figuring out the formula.
Yeah, definitely.
And I think this feels good though. I liked the way we've structured it this week, so I think it'll be along the lines of this going forward. So if you enjoyed this, stick with us. We got a lot of new listeners, I noticed last week. People who haven't listened before on Familiar. So if you're a new listener this week to this, welcome. Stick with us. If you're interested, you can go back and listen to Chris becoming a fan of the show and me introducing it to him episode by episode. Little tease. At first, he did not like it at all.
Was quite angered by it.
And then we sort of worked our way through, and Chris slowly began to fall in love with the show. It's a really, really nice. I'm really proud of this podcast and what we've achieved. And we also got an interview with Zach Callison on our channel, so if you've not listened to that yet, you can go hear us talk to Zach. We got to speak to him this year at London MCM Comic Con for about 20 minutes-ish, 20-25 minutes. It's a really cool little chat. He was lovely.
I can't remember what it was. I think it was Digital Spies, readers, awards. But London Comic Con was voted the 4th best event of the year or something. I was like, I know it was for us. And they had some fairly cool names there. But, it's not like the New York Comic Con where there's all the trailer reveals and stuff. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, London Comic Con was fun. There were some really cool people. We got to meet 2 different people who've played the Doctor. We got to meet Paul McGann and Colin Baker. Yeah. Me and Chris had a great time, but we got to interview Zach Callison. It's you know what I mean? We didn't just get we didn't just walk up to his desk, plop down 50 quid for an autograph and a picture, and then walk away. We got to actually have a conversation with him, which was super exciting for us, and it definitely elevates it for us. But for the average goer, I don't know if that was that great a con. I don't know.
From an event point of view, there wasn't much to call between that and Heroes and Villain Fest for me.
Yeah,
which
exactly.
I also went to. So,
yeah.
Anyway, cool.
Yeah, so thanks everyone for listening. Check out the other stuff on the channel if you are new. If you are new and don't like watching this on YouTube, because every time you close the YouTube app, the sound goes away and you want to listen on the go, we are a podcast. We are on iTunes. We are on Stitcher. We're on Google Play. We are also soon, hopefully, if I can sort everything out. Look, I'm trying to do it today. Get us on Spotify, so you can listen to us between your re-listens to Familiar. So yeah, thanks very much for listening. I've been Dan Doolan.
I've been Chris Billingham.
And we'll speak to you next time when we discuss escapism.